Hey everybody, welcome to the Hiraeth and Other Words podcast. I am your host, Timothy Mangle, and I said my name pretty fun there, like Timothy Mangle. Anyways, welcome back. This is the first solo episode of the year, so that's pretty exciting. So I just want to do some housekeeping right up top and just say that the podcast is now available on YouTube. So if you normally watch on Facebook or you just listen to the audio version, just want to let you know that now it's available on YouTube. So it'll be linked below. You can just search for the name of the podcast, whatever. If you're able to find this, then I'm sure that you're able to find where this podcast would be located on YouTube. And just another thing, just quick right off the bat, we do have that Patreon going. So if you're interested in just getting more content and this stuff earlier, then go ahead and sign on up. That too will be linked in the description. So I hate doing that stuff because I'm a bad salesman, but it's just other stuff that got going on. I just wanted to share that with you. But I'm really excited about the topic today. I think it definitely won't be the first time that we've talked about it, and it definitely won't be the last time that we've talked about it. But that being said, it's this episode, for me, it's a little bit of a continuation off of last week's conversation with my mom. My mom and I talked a lot about mindfulness or really, paying attention to your thoughts. And I wanted to kind of just expand on that a little bit and just go into detail of what that looks like for me and my relationship with that. And hopefully I can just kind of give you some advice that, I find practical. So I really got introduced to the idea of mindfulness through meditation. And meditation really is, that's the whole point of it is really mindfulness is to cultivate the ability to be a mindful person. I started meditating in 2017, or maybe I think it might have even been late 2016. And so I've been on my spiritual journey since, obviously a spiritual journey is multiple lifetimes and the eternity and infinitely long. But in this incarnation or this time around, I really got interested in Christianity when I was 17, and that's when I really started devoting myself to God and to Jesus and to all these fun spiritual things that we get to talk about. I'm sorry I'm popping so much, guys. I'm trying to find a good placement for this mic, so just bear with me. So I spent the first, I didn't really get into meditating, like I said, until I was 26, 27, probably, 26, 27. I'm 31 now. So, 4 or 5 years ago, after 13 years, 14 years, something like that, of the spiritual journey. And it's funny because I see in the zeitgeist and just kind of popular culture that meditation is becoming more popular and science is showing all these things about how amazing it is. And for me, I'm not really surprised by it because people have been meditating for, thousands of years, and it's almost a very natural process, right? And so it's like I talked about last week. I guess I should say, if before you listen to this episode, it might be best to go back and listen to the one I had with my mother. You can watch it up on YouTube or, just go listen to the audio. But it's, for me, mindfulness, and meditation, it's like I said, it's so natural because your brain naturally has this tendency to run a mantra or to run a competitive loop. And so the idea is to put something in that place so that it's not so that you don't have a rudder and that the sea isn't just this open void that your thoughts can just go wherever, but that you kind of have something circulating there already. And that's kind of the idea of a mantra. But before we really get into that, I want to tell how I got introduced. I know I said through meditation, but it was actually through an experience I had through meditation that really made me aware of what the concept of awareness is, or yeah, whatever, mindfulness, whatever you would want to call it. So one night I was meditating, and I, was just doing whatever I did, and I had a really transcendental experience. It was one of the most profound religious experiences of my whole life, and I ended up getting a tattoo because of it, and I ended up. It was part of the reason that I moved to Oregon, because during the time I felt like it was time for me to do that. But when I came down from the experience and came back from it, however you want to say it, when I kind of was coming back into this reality, one of the first things I heard in my head, and I don't necessarily think it was one of my thoughts, but I don't know what happened, because I just came out of this crazy experience, and I don't really know. I can't begin to explain the experience, so I'll try in some other time. But all that to say was, one of the first things I heard when I came back was, pay attention to your senses. And I thought that was interesting, because I just had this grandiose experience. It felt, it's again, really big thing, but a really grandiose experience. And it was interesting to walk away from it, and then the experience ultimately leave me with some sort of residue of, it's important for you to pay attention to your senses. And that's so curious, because, we're taught that we have 5 senses, and, we do, taste, smell, seeing, hearing, and touch, right? So those are the 5 senses. But realistically, we have more than that, and I'm not going to sit here and begin to explain, what they could potentially be and all the depths of it, and maybe that'll be a thing another time. But let's start with just those 5 simple ones, and because they're so evident to us, right? And this is even the idea of fasting, and fasting was something that again helped me understand the idea of mindfulness, because you have your field of your experience, right? You have your field of what you're viewing, and your objective reality, right? So when you look out into the world, you see things, and it's your reality is more than just what you see. It's also what you feel and what you hear on the inside, right? So just as the same as you would interact or touch or want the things that are out here to be the best for you, then you would also want the things in here to be the best for you, right? So again, those are your senses. Those are whatever kind of makes up the you that isn't touchable, but it's a combination between the outside world and something in your body that produces a third something. That's a sense, right? So your brain and thoughts kind of work in a similar manner. Now, I remember hearing somebody say one time that the brain produces thoughts the same way that the tongue salivates. Now, the tongue salivates in different. It responds differently when you're just kind of going about your business. It's doing whatever it is that it does, and it's producing as normal. But you see a meal that you really want to eat, or you're really hungry, and you see that, or whatever, it's going to act up in a certain way. And now the brain is the exact same way. So like it just kind of goes about doing its thing, having its thoughts or whatever, and then you find yourself in a certain situation, and then that begins to exacerbate, right? So I mean, like, again, last weekend I said in my mom's episode, for me personally, like, I haven't been at this super like, let's go get 'em spiritual place, but spirituality really, the practices and the things that we're given and the things that we learn through the spiritual journey, they're not necessarily always for the hilltop times, because obviously the hilltop times are, you're doing okay, right? Like, you don't really need anything to help you kind of push through, because you're just kind of instinctively migrating reality in, as it comes to you. But when you're in a valley, that's when the spiritual practices really become important. And whether you're in a valley personally, it's hard to say that our society isn't, or that our current culture is, or that our climate is, or whatever. There's hostility in the air, and everyone's a little tense, and And that's why I really feel like the idea of mindfulness is so gosh darn important, because you're not just responding to, right? So think about it this way. When you eat a hamburger or whatever, again, going back to the tongue analogy, you're just walking down the street and you're a little bit hungry and you see somebody that has a hamburger and you're like, ah, like you don't just go and respond on the tongue and just go and devour that hamburger. I mean, that would be more of a gut instinct, but my point still remains that there's a response that swells up within you that you have to learn to give yourself to. And this is what I was talking about with fasting earlier is, I would do these 3-day fasts. I would just start on a Monday, go to a Wednesday, and then eat, regular for the weekend or whatever it was. And by the third day, all I'm thinking about is the fact that I haven't eaten, right? So again, you have to not be controlled by not just your thoughts, but your body has this drive of, hey, we're eating and we need to eat to survive or whatever it would be, whatever your body tells you. And for me, what I really got from fasting was being able to sit with my body and see like, yeah, I know that we're hungry and I know that we want to eat and that we normally eat as much, but I'm really focusing on something else right now. And I appreciate you, body, for telling me that you're hungry, because I appreciate that. If that didn't work, I wouldn't know to eat, and I need food, so it's a good thing that your body tells you that it's hungry. Same with depression. Like it's not necessarily good that people are depressed. They shouldn't live there, but it's good that your body produces this warning sign to let you know that the things need to change. So what I'm trying to say is, and this is what we really talked about last week, is don't just respond to your emotions or any thoughts that you have. You're the one who gets to choose how you respond to your thoughts. And I mean, obviously I believe that everyone wants to do, if anyone's looking at their thoughts and thinking about them intently, I hope that they're doing it for the right reasons. And I don't know if everyone does that, but my hope is that when people sit with their thoughts and sit with their honest opinions of the world or whatever, that it frees them to some degree, that you don't, I don't know what I'm trying to say right now, other than it's important to sit with yourself in a way that is honest and true to who you are. And I think, again, that's part of what mindfulness and meditation is being able to sit and to focus and to not be swayed, to not be this rudderless thing in this, vapid void of potentiality. And it's a good thing to practice. And last night I was thinking about this because, I was just thinking, how do I do this in my life now? Like, how do I practice mindfulness in the day-to-day? Because I really need to do this. I really need to be able to just be able to go throughout my day and not have things affect me on my inner peace level, or that my soul level, that I'm not just so shaken by things that come my way, regardless of whatever that is. We talked about this in non-duality last season, a couple of weeks ago, when, it's the idea of when your horse gets stolen, or horse runs away, or when your son breaks his leg, or when you find riches. It's who knows what's good and what's bad, and hopefully it's not this overwhelming response of, it's there are traps in life, right? And your emotions and your brain are one of the biggest traps that we have to learn to get around. And obviously your brain and your emotion, they're your friends, they're tools for you to use, but they're not good masters. They're not something that you're supposed to be suppressed by, but that you're supposed to be able to use what your emotions are saying in order for that inner peace to be achieved and to be, just sat in. So again, I feel like I got off of what I was saying, but last night I was thinking, what is just good practices, simple practices for this? And what I remembered, or what really came to me was just learn to listen to your senses, right? So they're the first 5 basic ones. So, when whatever you can see, really look at it. Whatever you can hear, really listen to it. Whatever you can taste, really taste it. Whatever you can feel, really feel it. And I forget which one I left out, but whatever that one is, really do it, And so I was laying in bed, and, the air is a little cold, and I got this blanket on me that feels really nice. My girlfriend just washed it, and so it smells good. And it's just this, it's so easy to dole out all of your other senses while we're listening to whatever narrative is that's going on in our head, right? So, and maybe we have to do that to survive to some degree, because I'm sitting on this futon. It's nice and comfy. The air's, it's a perfect, like, room temperature. It's fine. And I'm not really paying attention to it. But I think it's a good practice to just be going through your day and then just to focus on what you're feeling, And so I was laying there last night, and I was just focusing on the air. And I was focusing on the blanket, and I was focusing on the sounds of my cats running around, and just whatever it was. And I was really, for me, I feel like I have a good excuse for, I'm very devout and religious in my relationship with God. And I don't want to say that that's necessarily important to the spiritual path, because I do believe that you can kind of live and you don't have to be constantly like in prayer or like this sense of devotion or whatever. But for me, I feel like, when I sit and I listen to my cats playing or the air being nice and chill, whatever it is, for me that is, it's God making himself known to me. And I see him in these beautiful little gifts of, my cat batting around a toy mouse, of, just the sound of my girlfriend sleeping. These are all beautiful things that God is showing himself through, and it's happening all around us. And it's the biggest crime of being a human, is realizing that all around us is divinity, that the whole thing is just soaked in this beautiful, beautiful mess of glory, and we don't see it and we don't feel it for the most part. We take life as an assumption, and we take our thoughts as these, there's a verse in the Bible that says, take every thought captive in Jesus Christ. But it's so often that our thoughts are the ones that are taking us captive. And that's, everything that's here is a tool for us. And these things, we're supposed to use them in the proper way to, open up, our hearts to people, and to open up love towards people. And how often do our thoughts really help us do that naturally, right? So we need to get to this place where we're paying attention to our inner world. So the same way, again, this is a good practice, right? So just focus on feeling the air. So don't just take the air as an assumption. There's air here, I can kind of see it. Or you can't see it. I don't know what I just said. I can kind of feel it, or whatever, And then take that same thing with the thoughts inside of your head, and just be like, oh, I can see that I'm thinking these thoughts. That it's not just the thoughts are being poured out like a stream that you're just stuck in, but it's actually a stream that's going past, everything. And I know I've talked about this on the podcast before, but this is another great thing of mindfulness that I learned was, when you make the statement, I am sad, or I'm hungry, or whatever it is, you're affirming that there's two things there. There's the I that is observing the hunger, right? So it's a separate thing from the I, that initial being, that isness that everything else revolves around. And for me, that is really, you want to understand that place of being and that place of isness is the place of God. and it's the place that the soul sits. It's the place of equanimity. It's the place of, beyond words. And that's what you are at your core. And then there's everything else that's kind of spinning around and happening on the outside of that. And it's so easy to get caught up in the muck of, your thoughts and your feelings and your, God forbid you have any ideologies, because that just takes your whole brain, your whole way of seeing the world, And what I'll say towards that is that, ideologies are a good thing, because they're to a degree, they're like glasses to help you see the world, but, they're not the world. They're just the thing by which you see the world. And, I feel about ideologies the same way that I do about words, that they're, actually I'm more in love with words than I am with ideologies, because ideologies can be just as deadly as words when used poorly. But, a word is just supposed to be a bridge between something and something else. So when I say a tree, the word tree is not a tree, but it's a bridge between my subjective experience of a tree and you as a listener, your experience as a tree. So I say tree, and then it's a sort of magic trick. I'm like, tree, boom, and then you think about one, right? Like, it's like the whole don't think about an elephant. Boom, just made you think about an elephant. Ha. I'm a wizard, finally. Yeah. Oh man, I feel like I really lost myself there at the end. I was mostly just waiting to make that wizard joke. But so I don't even know if I ever got back to the whole thing when I started talking about devotion and all that, but yeah, I did. Okay, so again, the idea of, it's the whole thing is sacred, and so when you're in those times, and I'm pretty sure I've told this story before about painting. I was painting a brick wall one time, and painting a brick wall is not easy, nor is it necessarily fun. It can be fun. But see, there's an insight right into my attitude, right? I went and right off the bat, I'm like, this is not fun. And so there's me catching myself, right? So like, instead of just allowing myself to live into the narrative that isn't fun, and then I buy into it, I wouldn't go into a movie, or I wouldn't want to, go to a concert or something like that thinking that it's going to suck. So great. So I'm so happy that happened, because it's a perfect example of mindfulness, to be able to catch yourself and be like, oh, I, on a subconscious level, just allowed myself to instantly think that going into this situation that it was going to be bad. And that situation, it did suck, which led me to the point of being like, hey, you can't just sit here being upset and being whatever. You have to do something. You have to, get back to that place of, peace and tranquility within. And I just saw the wall, my actions, all of it is not just devotion to God, but the acting out of God. And you'll hear a lot of mystics say that God is a verb, that it's something that is, even the idea of God is love. That's a verb. Love it's an emotion, and it's a beautiful thing, but it's something that needs to be acted out, right? I can't just tell my girlfriend that I love her and then not do anything that, would also make that statement true. It's an embodied thing. And also that implies another thing. So God needs to exist in a state where God is, God can't be loving without the other. And that's something to be said about the Trinity and also creation itself. But we're stepping a little too far out. So we're getting close to the end of this thing, and I feel like I've just been rambling at this point. But my encouragement, my challenge for you and myself this week is, when you get overwhelmed by your emotions, when you get overwhelmed by the news or the media or whatever it is, I just pray that you would just look at your thoughts and try to replace them with some sort of beautiful mantra that empowers you, that leads you to a place of openness and a place of, yesness. Maybe that'll be the next thing I do on finding mantras or meditation or something like that. Yeah, but and also with that, remember to feel the air. Remember to really taste the whatever it is that you're drinking. Don't just, if it's water, drink more water. If it's water, really taste it. If it's coffee, really taste it. It's a special gift. All of it, man. And I believe that living in that mind space, it really cultivates positivity and gratefulness and generosity. So yeah, guys, I love you. I feel like I don't say that often, but you're lovable, and I hope you know that. Hope you sit in that. Yeah, thank you for hanging out. Subscribe, click a bell. I guess if we're on Facebook, or whatever. Just leave likes, comments, let me know. Sign up for Patreon, follow us on the socials. Yeah. I need a good sign off. Thanks for hanging out, friends. Bye.